self-generation ex nihilo, built upon by whom? By self-evolution is the answer. Moreover, as dynamics teach that a body in motion tends to continue in the name of relative rest or motion unless acted upon by some external force. This force has to be regarded as self-generated, even if not eternal, since this would amount to the recognition of perpetual motion, and so well self-calculated and self-adjusted as to last from the beginning to the end of cosmos. But self-generation has still to generate from something, generation ex nihilo, being as contrary to reason as it is to science. Thus we are placed once more between the horns of a dilemma. Are we to believe in perpetual motion or in self-generation ex nihilo? And if in neither, who or what is that something which first produced that force or those forces? These are such things in mechanics as superior levers, which give the impulse and act upon secondary or inferior levers. The former, however, need an impulse and occasional renovation, otherwise they would themselves very soon stop and fall back into their original status. What is the external force which puts and retains them in motion? Another dilemma. As to the law of cosmical non-intervention, it could be justified only in one case, namely, if the celestial mechanism were perfect, but it is not. The so-called unalterable motions of celestial bodies alter and change incessantly. They are very often disturbed, and the wheels of even the sidereal locomotive itself occasionally jump off their invisible rails, as may be easily proved. Otherwise, why should Laplace speak of a probable occurrence at some future time of an out-and-out reform in the arrangements of the planets? Or Lagrange maintain in the gradual narrowing of the orbit? Or our modern astronomers again declare that the fuel in the sun is slowly disappearing? If the laws and forces which govern the behavior of the celestial bodies are immutable, such modifications and wearing out of substance or fuel or force and fluids would be impossible, yet they are not denied. Therefore, one has to suppose that such modifications will have to rely upon the laws of forces, which will have to self-regenerate themselves once more on such occasions, thus producing an astral antinomy and a kind of physical polynomy, since, as Laplace says, one would then see fluids disobeying themselves and reacting in a way contrary to all their attributes and properties. Newton felt very uncomfortable about the moon. Her behavior in progressively narrowing the circumference of her orbit around the Earth made him nervous, lest it should end one day in our satellite falling upon the Earth. The world, he confessed, needed repairing, and that very often. See the passage quoted by Herschel in Natural Philosophy. In this he was corroborated by Herschel. He speaks of real and quite considerable deviations, besides those which are only apparent, but gets some consolation from his conviction that somebody or something will probably see to things. We may be answered that the personal beliefs of some pious astronomers, however great they may be as scientific characters, are no proofs of the actual existence and presence in space of intelligent supramundane beings, of either gods or angels. It is the behavior of the stars and planets themselves that has to be analyzed, and inferences must be drawn therefrom. Renan asserts that nothing that we know of the sidereal bodies warrants the idea of a presence of any intelligence, whether internal or external to them. Let us see, says Renan, if this is a fact or only one more empty scientific assumption. The orbits traversed by the planets are far from being immutable. They are, on the contrary, subject to perpetual mutation in position as in form. Elongations, contractions, and orbital widenings oscillations from right to left, slackening and quickening of speed, and all this on a plane which seems to vacillate, tel a ciel. As is very pertinently observed by de Musset, here is a path having little of the mathematical and mechanical precision claimed for it, for we know of no clock which, having gone slow for several minutes, should catch up the right time of itself and without the turn of a key. So much for blind law and force. As for the physical impossibility, a miracle indeed in the sight of science, of a stone raised in the air against the law of gravitation. This is what Babinet, the deadliest enemy of opponent of the phenomena of levitation, cited by Arago, he says, are the angels and stars. Everyone knows the theory of bodies, meteors, and aerolites. In Connecticut, an immense aerolith was seen, a mass of 1,800 feet in diameter, bombarding a whole American zone and returning to the spot in midair from which it had started, Rufo de Arago. We find in both of the cases above stated that of self-correcting planets and meteors of gigantic size flying back into the air, a blind force regulating and resisting the natural tendencies of blind matter, and even occasionally repairing its mistakes and correcting its failures. This is far more miraculous and even extravagant, one would say, than any angel-guided element. Bold is he who laughs at the idea of Von Haller, who declares that the stars are perhaps an abode of glorious spirits. As for Vice Franks, there is virtue master. Tengo que mandarles, emocionarme, firmar autógrafos, alegrar corazones. Ser reina no es fácil.